Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon or evening. My name is Dr. Diana Londoño. I'm a urologist in Los Angeles, and I'm the founder of physiciancoachsupport.com, which is a free and confidential platform for any physician to come and get support by a peer who's also a certified life coach. And the purpose is to help physicians gain clarity, just get rid of that overwhelm, get a clear path, just feel more grounded, with everything that's happening in our lives, whether personal, at home, financially, with your kids. So it's really about anything that is coming up for you that you may want to speak to somebody about without, having to go to your own institution or, it's confidential. So that's why we're here. And every month we bring an amazing speaker or guest to really help us look at different tools, different ways to look at things, and just hopefully help us in our life, whether you're a physician or not. But we are really just here again for support because, burnout is real, depression is real, and it affects so many of our colleagues and of people in general. So today I am excited to just bring a lovely guest, Dr. Ardeshir Mehran, who is a psychologist, and he lives in the Bay Area, and he'll tell us more about his background and sort of how he came to the US from Iran, and really how his work has evolved in the last 30 years, really culminating really in his book, You're Not Depressed, You're Unfinished, and the 7 emotional rights we will discuss today. And it's a great book that I read as it came out, and it really shifted my view of depression and how we can look at it, and how we can maybe, as ourselves or with a guide or help of others, like Dr. Amaran, really maybe get a different perspective, and again get us back to joy, wholeness, and in a better place. So thank you, Dr. Moran, for being here. We are just really grateful of your time and of your expertise to share with us today.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for Diana being here and being with your guest. And I invite you to ask questions. This is not a lecture. I'm not here to sell my book. I'm really here to invite you to get curious about the so-called mental illness. And the reason I even say mental illness scientifically, that term is incorrect. There's nothing mental about it. It happens in our entire being. Mental illness, mental wellness. So I want to get you curious and provide some directions to ask different questions and consider different actions. So before I talk about myself, if you went to a nutritionist, to a financial advisor, to somebody to work with you, a bodybuilder, like physical fitness, you would expect to see results, correct? If it goes couple weeks, couple months, they say, hey, I'm not making more money. My stocks, feeling lousy, or my diet is not working for me. I'm feeling sluggish, it's not working, and so on and so on. But when it comes to mental health, we've come to accept that is a norm to go to a therapist for weeks, months, and years, change therapist, and we come to accept, and it's okay to get just incremental results over a long period of time. The reason we think like that is that we have led to believe that change is hard. Human beings are hard to change, that the old patterns, old wounds are hard to change. I want to tell you now, none of those are correct. When I went to graduate school, I went to Columbia, my Ph.D., I triple majored, I have 4 masters. It's embarrassing how many credentials I have. I'm a skeptical researcher. I was thinking why we expect patients to come back to us over and over. Is it a patient or is it our trade? And I've come to realize from early on, with psychologists, actually, we don't get depression. So I say this with a lot of respect for psychologists. We see psychology, if you go do PHQ-9, which is the Standard Psychiatric Association, American Psychiatric Association assessment for about attention, about energy, about concentration, is about the overwhelm and so on. We see those as symptom of depression. those are really tip of the iceberg. But I went over and over to realize what actually is depression, and all I was getting more description of symptoms. Over 30 years working with clinical patients and in corporate environment, realize when people talk about depression, if you listen to how they talk, they tell you a story of certain patterns that across gender, cultures, age, the stories are different, but the context, they're all similar. And what people really, when they're depressed, they are yearning for something. They see it, they feel it, they call it. And we psychologists, we do disservice right away, going try to make them feel good. And I see Annalisa head nod. I mean, like, so that was my own story. I was depressed, went to 7 psychologists, psychiatrists. I was a good patient, did everything that was suggested, medication. Came from a family of trauma, and I was thinking, I'm going nowhere. I just learned symptom management. So I left the field of psychology. I said, heck with it. I don't want to do that. Doesn't make sense. I went to corporate environment, used my knowledge of human behavior, became a corporate executive, what change, culture, leadership development. And I thought I want to work with normal people. Lo and behold, those senior leaders, as I start to work with them, do testing, realize, oh my gosh, you can be crushing it, wealthy. Some of the names at the CEO level, they are basically don't feel anything. They are lonely. They are dealing with substance abuse, infidelity. And I was just thinking, it's not them. The discussion of emotional wellness and illness is overcomplicated. There's some basic foundational knowledge to that. If we bring it, we can find our way home. That's what I want to share with you today. So, how does it sound so far? Are you guys there to do you want to follow more?
Yeah, I mean, I think for people that have perhaps been in therapy, or know of people that have been, I mean, we sort of know of, like, let's say cognitive behavioral therapy, or even Jungian, or like different types of talk therapy. There's many ways we can approach it. If you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, obviously the psychiatrist may use medications as well. But how would you say that is different than, we'll dive into this, the emotional rights. How is that different looking at that? Is it just a way that we are maybe asking questions? Are we, because I know in your book you said these therapists were trying to sort of fix you.
Yeah,
But
exactly,
we're
exactly.
not maybe looking at, like, what are we yearning? What are we, yearning in life for, or missing, that is really at the root of,
Thank you.
Why people feel depressed.
Thank you. Thank you. So there is a changes happening in the field of behavioral research, and it's coming from the field of trauma research, and pain clinics, and the whole is the so-called trauma-informed or somatic work. Basically, what the somatic work means, that we humans experience almost everything with our entire body. There's no such thing as brain thinking. Like, I was trained initially as psychoanalyst, then I went to cognitive behavior therapy. I did Jungian, Carl Roger, and so on. There's a lot of emphasis on verbal reporting of people's emotions, that if you understand, you can resolve. If you can explain, you can resolve. If you can access memories, you can resolve. It's wonderful, but it's based upon the wrong premise, that what we know from research and neurology, brain doesn't feel anything. Feelings, they're all in the body. Brain can categorize, can understand certain experiences, but what we know, actually, the order of brain and body, we got it backward. It is not that brain thinks and body follows. It's actually body senses, picks up energy, picks up emotions and the interpretation of the world, and brain responds to that. So the way therapy has changed, and my work is about 15 years ago, I started to change. The very first thing I do in the session when clients work with me is invite them to be here in the moment and help them attune to their body. Partly is about your breath, what is coming up to your body as you're sitting here. Like, let's say if you're my clients, many of my clients are on Zoom. What are you sensing? I don't ask, how are you feeling? So what are you sensing? Feeling is a very cognitive work. What are you sensing? You invite your body. What is sensing in your gut? What is sensing in your heart and lungs? Gut is about where anxiety resides. This is where fight or flight is. Gut, many women, senior leaders, they have gastrointestinal issues. Men have cardiovascular issues. Many people have shoulder ache, backache, headache, migraine. Ask them, what are you seeing in your body? And as you do that, ask them, what do all of this mean to you? So I help the clients to create a fuller awareness of your being. And in that context, ask them, what matters to you right now? What you want to discuss? What it does, what I'm seeing, people can make breakthrough realization and changes from the very first session. And what you see people who work with me about 5, 10, maximum 15 sessions, they can get a lot of work done by understanding how am I operating. That awareness is good, but understanding your entire nervous system, your body is a lot more important. But also I found out, and this is why I start to experiment, that when people are depressed, so the couple of things very important. We can be very stress, then anxiety happen. And I assume everybody's clear with that. People can be very anxious, but not depressed. Anxiety means we are getting very wound up and hyper vigilant, something going on, looking for stability, looking for predictability and control. You can be very anxious, but not depressed. But when you're depressed, you're almost always anxious. And they feed each other. And what I also learned, when depression lingers, depression doesn't go away. You cannot just fix depression. You need to fix anger as well. And for many mental illnesses, this is the part that at times I want to scream. Pathologies don't happen in singular. Like you just don't become bipolar or manic depressive or depression. They usually travel in pack. If you have ADHD, you have depression and anxiety at play. You just don't see it because ADHD is more visible. And so when a client comes to you, you need to see the entire human experience, because illness is expression. How is the body of this person responding? What else is going on? What are the emotions about the emotional needs? And then you start, it's almost where the fire is, calm the person, calm the nervous system, and then go to their emotional needs. This is very important for depression. Depression also is not you have it, you don't have it. Typically, there are 3 types of depression. So as the clients come to you, the very first one is depression as a disruption, job loss. You lose a loved one. Your pet is dying. Financial ruin. This is this status quo you have. You may not have liked it, but there's a disruption to that. What happened, depression looks like you go through significant introduction of grief, of loss, and you're angry. You are bewildered. You're confused. Anger is a key dominant here. You just want stability, and you're really looking for something to settle. Anxiety is at play here. Most people experience many disruptions in their lifetimes. The next one, if you can imagine the normal curve, the next depression is what I call disconnection. That there are basic emotional needs you have, and I will talk about them, there's 7 of them, that for multiple reasons, they've been violated. You didn't know you have them, that you've come to accept, you know what? It's okay if nobody loves me. It's okay I don't have a good job. It's okay I hate my boss, it pays the good money. Basically, you deny yourself what you want. Once you do that, we start to feel depression comes as a sense of fragmentation. We feel numb. We feel lonely. We feel lost. And we have a hard time as physician high performers to talk about it because it comes across as weakness. Dude, what's wrong with you? Come on, you're in a good job. You're doing great. Snap out of it. Why do you feel disconnected? There was an article in Harvard Business Review 2 years ago that up to 50% of CEOs report to be lonely. This is not lonely at the top. This is lonely as a lifestyle. And these are CEOs. They're crushing it. Role model in a room full of admiring people. So when you're lonely, you're talking about a domain of depression. They come to say it's the price of success. And I will come once you do that, your brain is functioning, your body's paying the price. Your body holds the information. The third depression, I call it submission. We are entering the domain of suicide. This is basically people are numb. And the way you see it in talking to your colleagues, what is important, they have great smile on their faces. They are life of the party. Think about Robin Williams, that he said that I don't fake depression, I fake being normal. That these are people, they just don't feel anything and they feel total numbness and they just don't feel that they have any control. And they're one of the reasons they commit suicide. They just feel I have nothing else left. I'm basically a slab of rock. So when you're in meetings with people, you have friends, just see how they describe their depression. Each one has a different way of responding. Physicians who are busy, and I know that there's a high rate of suicide among physicians. In armed forces, this is what I learned that I blew my mind. Every day, up to 20 people at the officer level take their lives. Because they are in the role, you cannot basically slow down. You just go on and on. So the question you want to ask, you want to listen, ask them, so what is going on with you? What are you feeling? And pay attention. Is this about disruption, disconnection, or submission? Your response and the healing process is very different.
So, I mean, some of these emotional rights, and you're talking about trauma, the trauma that sort of gets stored in our body, and then you have to kind of get to that somatic sense where you feel, what are you feeling that comes up that in a way is unlocking some of this trauma that might have happened many times in childhood. And I know in some of the emotional rights you discuss, I think an important one is that I belong, because I think that starts with childhood. It starts with the attachment styles.
That's right.
And when there are different attachment styles that you talk about in your book, whether it's secure or avoidant or anxious, it starts manifesting in a lot of things, obviously during childhood, but also as an adult, how we cope with mechanisms that may or may not be healthy. And I think especially for physicians, let's say, I mean, there's many reasons we don't ask for help, but especially if you had an attachment style where it was avoidant, I mean, you don't ask for help because asking for help, you sort of learned that you couldn't trust your caretakers. So then you had to do things on your own. And so that was a coping mechanism, that you do things on your own without help from anyone. And so, then when life goes on and all the challenges happen and you start feeling depressed or that disconnection, then it's very difficult to ask for help because it's not part of your operandum. That's not how you operate. So I think if we sort of go through maybe some of these emotional rights and see how they can, how can we basically experience each one? How can we, uncover a little bit more about them, and then, really experience that to really get back to that wholeness. So I don't know if there's one that, it's the first one, or, I mean, they're all important, but, can we go through some?
There's a rhythm. Let me describe that. So I do have doctors in my family, both internists, pediatrics, and also surgeons. In fact, I was in a meeting, a Zoom meeting with my relatives back on the East Coast. Doctors are trained to take care of everybody else. They don't know how to ask for help and even be vulnerable. The same with psychologists. Some of the most miserable people in the world are psychologists because they listen to everybody else and they feel awkward to say, I'm struggling. So the very first need happen at birth is a sense of I belong, sense of attachment. Attachment, the, for those of you who know the work of Alice Miller or John Bowlby, is the quality of caregiver mother holds the baby. And several things happen in the sequence is attachment, separation, independence. So when baby is there, baby looks at mother, the way mother looks at the baby through the mother's eyes or caregiver finds him or herself. And smiling face, mother is available, mother is paying attention. It lasts as much as the baby needs. The child says, there's love over there. I'm loved. I love that person. The reality is that the whole parenting has become very complicated. What you see many successful people go through life and they are longing for just be seen, be held, be paid attention to. What also know from other research, substance abuse for senior leaders is as a way you get surge of excitement, energy, as a way says, I'm connected. That attachment, it's there, the sense of connecting. So sense of connecting, for you, I don't know you, of course, that it could be as elemental as you're with somebody and that somebody just listens to you and pays attention to you, that you can look in that person's eyes and listens to you, says, tell me more, I'm here for you, that you feel that you, your emotions as you are, matter at this point, creating a space for you. Better yet, you can hold hand, physical touch, can be with your pet. And as a way that there's a connection to another being. And physicians, the culture is that we don't touch. We don't touch you. There's the language way of connecting. So many of us are hungry for basic human connection. We don't know how to do that. And especially if you're in a complex, frayed relationship, that element of human touch is not even meaningful. That's why some of the infidelities happen. People are looking for basic human connection. Human connection is the basic level of the relating. The next one happens right at the early stage, sense of I'm boundless. We've raised kids, many of us. I have a wonderful 20-year-old son graduating from college this year. By the time they become 4 or 5 years old, we tell them, sit there, don't use your fingers, don't be fidgety, use your words, be smart. We teach them basically become heady creatures. We teach them how to basically fragment their body. So in my work, talking with the executive, they say my gut hurt, my head hurt, I have, the cardiovascular. No, it's your entire being. It's not an organ in distress, it's you are in distress. So we basically dismember a human being. So it's about honoring as a way bringing dialogue into entire being as a human, that we just don't have knees hurting. Your body is walking certain ways. You carry yourself in different ways. So it's the integrity of the body that we mess it up from the time we raise our children. The next one is I am complete. We learn around the life that past memories, many of us have trauma, shame, guilt, that it's yucky. I don't want to go there. Put it aside. Actually, those memories, they need to be surfaced. They need to be experienced and put it aside to be processing them. We are wonderful in compartmentalizing and suppressing emotions. And that is almost fire under the base of the house. It burns us. I'm complete is understanding your past, coming to terms with it, and letting go and building a life right now.
Sort of letting go of the baggage from anything that happened, like not holding on to it or making it your identity, but just saying, I've experienced that, whether good or bad, but just letting it go and not carrying that weight.
Carrying that. The reason that, Diana, this is so important, what we know from neurology and the whole trauma research, there's no such thing as past. So compared to the past way of the therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, and so on, all you need in your life is present right now. Going past recollection, tell me about your childhood, your trauma, what happened. actually is not helpful. You re-traumatize people. The way it shows up right now, your work is coming up right now. The healing, resolving, reconstruction happens in here and now as it surfaces. Going past and doing that, it prolongs the therapy and prolongs a memory that can be reprocessed in a here and now. Because neurology, our body has no memory of past. Brain remembers that, but is using the body as is designed. The next one is a need of I am. All of us respond to sense of dignity, being honored, being valued, being your needs be felt, heard, and responded to. So for a physician, you work in an environment, you see 4 patients per hour. You went to this work because this work mattered to you. By seeing patients after patient, by the way that you feel administrative work is taking over your work, it does something that my work, I'm just a machine, versus your work is your honor. That's the reason you went to become a physician, that you feel that I'm not valued, I don't matter. And this is a very important one that creates the significant disruption. In fact, you know, the people who do mass shooting, the young men, typically they are men, one of the reasons that they, they research them, they talk with them, they say that they felt invisible. Through the act of violence, they said, hey, I'm seen. So it matters for us to be seen and honored. The next need is the need of I make, your profession. We know from the Gallup research, every year for the last 25 years, up to 2/3 of American workers report low level of engagement at work, low level of job satisfaction. What we know from multiple research coming from American, the National Institute of Mental Health and Columbia University, that low engagement correlate to high depression and high anxiety. Basically, you feel that you're doing something that is not your work. You pay the bill. I did that many years, but this is not my work. The need here is that whatever you do, is it your calling? Do you feel you're growing? Are you in flow, or are you paying a price to pay the bills? And we do that, but when it goes to a certain level, there's a consequence to that. The next need, which is a need of I am. This is your soul's message. Everybody has it. And the way I start to stumble upon this, in fact, is fascinating. About 15 years ago, I was working with senior leaders, and I would see people would come to my coaching session. There was a quality to their voice. And as they were talking, and I felt that there was a raspiness, like almost their tightness, as if air would come in and constrict around here. And at times I would see them people talk and they put around here. So tell me about your hand. What is your assistant doing with your hand? They would talk a little about tightness around here, that they have thyroid problem, they have surgery, shoulder problem. And I would tell them that what you see is coming up. So the I am is that we all have voices, conviction, belief. That is your idea, my idea. It could be the worst idea. What is your idea? That we learn to make it fit into the world. We try to take the energy out of it, try to take the zinger out of it, try to make it fit in. It might be right, but the part is that, are you compromising sharing what you believe in? That's how we become depressed, that I'm not me anymore. I'm just trying to fit in. We see this in men and women differently. For many of the women that I work with, senior leaders, you see there's a quality of younger teenager. There's sweetness in their voice that almost they're trying to be liked, to be seen. With men, they overshoot, very boisterous. This is how it needs to be. Both of them are over and under that. What is your voice? What do you need to say so that you feel the energy of conviction is being put into the world? And the exercise that I do, I invite you to consider, I play the Katy Perry Roar song. And I would tell them, give me your roar music. What is your roar? What does it look like? If you are not worried about anybody, but annoying anybody. What would you say? Knock me down from across the room so your voice is heard by the room. The last one is I soar. There's a statement behind me on the wall, is by Maya Angelou, that there is no greater agony than burying an untold story inside you. An untold story. We all have a story. 8 billion people, 8 billion stories. Do you know your story? It's more than purpose. It's about your stance on this earth at this time. You're here for a reason. You have a role to play as fully as possible. Once you do that, you feel different. For many people, wait for the soaring comes from their job, from their partner, from their next promotion. No, this is your life gift. So these 7, we have them. Parents don't give it to us. Teachers, presidents, managers, we all have them. Nobody told us that. Nobody taught us that. My works for the first time documented that all the way from the Greek philosophers, that when people are depressed, going all the way to my clinical training, they were talking in those terms, that there were needs they had they didn't even know, and they compromised. Their depression was yearning for what mattered to them, relationship, for a job, for a purpose, to be married, to find their voice. But once you do that, this is what's blew my mind as I tried this myself. You see depression literally dissipate very quickly in a matter of weeks. And there will be a day you will wake up, you are not depressed, you are pissed. You don't want to waste time anymore. That's what I learned. And that's what I'm share my message with the world.
So basically looking at each one and sort of seeing like, am I not being authentic? Am I trying to fit in? Where's my purpose? Where is my path? Where is my voice? Using your voice, your story without suppressing. Because I think in a way, depression is like you're depressing, you're suppressing
Absolutely.
that 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 part of you that wants to have a message, that wants to speak. And like you mentioned in the examples, whether it's a woman or man, they're doing it different ways. They're trying to sort of have that sweet voice to sort of be liked, or to be overpowering to be listened to. So we have these adaptive ways of coming across because we haven't really found our true voice. And I think because we are afraid of, what people will think, like what will they think? Or, if I'm not liked, I have to sort of adapt it and fit into this mold. But when you fit into that mold and you don't do your own authenticity, I think that starts like eroding that soul that I am, because you're just fitting into something that is not used, like putting the wrong shoes that don't fit.
That's
And
right.
then you feel that pain in your feet because it doesn't fit. You're trying to be something that you're not. So I think it's sort of
Absolutely.
going back to the authenticity of the self, by going through these emotional rites. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, what you mentioned, illness, mental and physical, they're data. They're indication of a compromised, fragmented life. Ultimate healing, in fact, the word healing is come from, it has a Latin root. It means to be made whole. When we are ill, it means we are not whole. So instead of more therapy, psychotherapy these days is about reducing the illness containing that, versus using it as data, guiding the clients to wholeness. What has been missing? Once you enroll, the data is a signal. Illness is a signal, especially those of you familiar with the work of Gabor Mate and the research about adverse childhood impact, that illness is about the life of fragmented life that is being compromised. So use that as data to back to health, to wholeness, to restoration.
Like this Ramana put on here on the chat, there is no more agony than a suppressing untold story. So sort of,
Yeah.
Not using your voice, holding on, and that really does, internally start causing that illness, that reflux, that headache, all the physical symptoms that, again, I agree with you, they are signals that something is not right.
Yeah.
Many people have frozen shoulders, they, whether you look at it energetically or, any other way, usually it's talking about you're not using your voice, you are
Yeah.
suppressing something you're not saying, and that then leads to like the shoulder getting frozen. It's really actually interesting to see how it can manifest from an energy standpoint or from just what we see when people don't use their voice. What happens? They get laryngitis all the time, shoulders start hurting, all the back. And again, because we are suppressing, and like you said, fragmenting
Yeah.
our wholeness, and then that pieces of our body start having those illnesses or those diseases.
That's
So
right.
it is important to, like you kind of started at the beginning, feel in your body, what is
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
up in your body, because that will give you the clue of what in is out of balance, what is not
That's right.
whole.
That's right.
So you
That's right.
can sort of go back to that healing that you mentioned.
Here's important data for you to know, since there are a number of physicians here. Years ago, I used to work for a major California-based healthcare organization. One of my last projects was a partnership between psychiatry and internal medicine. The issue was it was a process improvement analysis. The issue was there's a high degree of patients, adult primary care, every day. What I learned, up to 1/3 of patients, they come in, is based up related to depression. They call them functional illness. And I asked the physicians, how do you know? They said, we look at their charts. They have the thickest charts. They keep coming back for physical ailments, and we know these are emotion related, predominantly depression. And I said, so what do you do? So part of my job was because it was costing the company a lot of money to help with that. I say that. So 4-month project, we didn't go anywhere because psychiatry says we don't know what to do with them. We don't want to tell the patients you need to see a therapist. But the internist says, I'm not going to tell somebody you need to go see the therapist. So ended up to giving a lot of medications. Opioid crisis, that's how it happened initially with all good intentions. People have pain. People are struggling, and we try to say we want to heal them. But a lot of physical pain is based upon emotional illness, especially depression first and then anxiety. And as a society, even when we go to therapy, is we trying to suppress and minimize it versus actually that's data for healing. That's the work that, as much as I love my colleagues psychology, we are not doing a good job to bring people back to health. Because really it's about symptom management, most of our psychotherapy these days.
Absolutely. When, nobody likes pain, but through the pain is where the healing happens.
Yeah,
And when
yeah,
we try to, again, suppress it with pain medications, because we don't want the pain, suppress it with other things to numb it, then
yeah.
we're not really uncovering what it's trying to tell us, because that
That's right.
pain really stops us at our tracks. I mean, there's nothing more that's going to stop you than pain somewhere. So
Yeah,
when we have that pain, instead of numbing it, stopping it, suppressing it, and not dealing with the underlying issue. Like there's pain because something, again, is not being verbalized. There's pain
that's right.
because
That's
you're
right.
holding on to that anger. You're holding on to something that happened that you're not letting go of.
Yeah, yeah.
You're carrying that past and you're just not living in the present. So yes, of course, you're going to feel that heaviness, that back pain, that neck pain. So, it's challenging because, how do you, as a physician, tell them what's your emotion, your energy you're holding on. And the
Yeah,
therapist
yeah,
is saying, well, let's talk about it, but it could re-traumatize, or here's a medication which may numb it.
yeah. That's right.
So
That's right.
it's
That's right.
looking at those other aspects of, okay, what is it telling me? Where can we then really experience and deep dive into, each one to tell us how can I then become whole by
Yeah,
realizing I am making a difference,
that's
whatever
right.
job you have. I
That's right.
am, what is it I am? What does my soul tell me?
That's
I
right. That's
matter
right.
in whatever role I have.
Yeah,
We're going through these roles, whether you're a physician, whether you're an architect, or whether you're a parent, a teacher, what are you contributing, through these emotional rights, even when we don't have control of a lot of things outside of it, of our
that's right.
world, but just focusing on what we can control.
That's right. Diana, let me build on what you mentioned and also to earlier conversation. People who have worked with me, and it was on my post, you saw it over the weekend. In my clinical work, I don't, when clients come to me, they usually the PTSD, trauma, depression, anxiety. I don't use any of those terms because those are all expressions, and tell them, tell me about you. And what I share with them, if you are having emotional struggles, what it means, dear colleague, physician, high performer, it means there's still more mojo inside you. There are higher peaks to go. There are more you can do. You are held back. Is less about fixing, is about unleashing, becoming fuller you. And I use the analogy of a three-legged thoroughbred horse. I ride British style horses, and thoroughbreds are most magnificent horses. These are people who still top of the class. They are doing great, but they are not as strong and as high rising as they think they are. Their ailments is indicating that there's more to them. So by healing yourself, you find there's more to you, more love, more energy, more vitality, more expressions, and you can go claim you as you are. So when physicians come to me and go on my website, you see I've already worked with physicians. I don't use the language of illness. I tell them that there's more to you. You're held back. You know what? And you know it. You know it. Your emotions, your gut, your pain, the way certain emotions are right, you go there and say, oh my gosh, that sucks. I know I'm missing that in my life. That's the part you held back. Once you know that, you, gifted physician, you can go construct, get the life you want. Having said that, there's a dynamics between men and women. Women physicians, women in general, they have an easier time to name what's struggling, what matters to them, share that, and where they want to go. With men, the journey of healing is slower because somehow the way we raise our boys, we don't use language, we use the language of action. So it's a gentler part about what could be missing. Men look for, give me something, I want to fix it. So that's okay. We go tiny bit, dose by dose, things you can do around emotional right versus women. What I found that they say, give me the full pictures. I want to find out what's going on with me. Then I will make a plan that is meaningful to me. Men, they go slower, one action at a time, and it's sense of outside in. Let me fix what's going on around, then come to me. Woman is more inside out. I want to feel more. I want to love more. I want to find me, and then I will make the life that I want. So it's a fascinating work about how men and women go there, and part of that leverage the sociology or biology, but nonetheless help them to find who they are.
I have a question here that says, do you have any thoughts to share about inherited emotional issues, the epigenetics of pain we may see in someone? Do you have
You
any
mean,
thoughts?
is this, does it mean like generational trauma? Is that what it is?
Um,
I
yes.
want to make sure, is that what it is?
Yes, that's what they said. Yes.
Yeah, so generational trauma is real, and generational trauma basically means patterns. That the way we learn from our parents, and I know this firsthand, I wrote my book. As I wrote it, finished it, realized that was how my mom and dad were. We learn, every family learns what to express and what to not express, what is good emotionally and what you hold back. We learn that. And we pay a price for that. Trauma is the learned behavior. The way to do that, and we can reserve trauma imprints. A message I want to share with you, and in fact, there's a YouTube, it's not, it's a very 15-second Instagram. I'd be more than happy to send it to you, share with the audience here, that every now and then there's a child is born, boy and girl in a family, and that child is the child that feels things, super sensitive child, a child that usually gets in trouble, is labeled as ADHD, OCD, and so on. Those are the children that are meant to reverse the generational trauma because they feel it, they see it and experience it. It's a gift they have. I was one of them and I paid the price for that. This is what I end up doing that. So once you learn that, you realize how love was conditioned in your raising, how punishment was conditioned, how things you could feel but you could not address. So once you see that, in the way you know generational trauma is through your own way, and the pattern you see it, asking, say, where the heck these patterns came from? And you see mom was like that, dad was like that, grandparents were like that. So as you do the work, you're resetting the energy of the family, you bringing that, and it's beautiful work, it's doable work, and it's not that complicated. We don't need to go to really into Tibetan mountain to figure it out. The generational trauma right now in your tissues, the way you eat, the way you talk, the way you zone out, the way you zone in, it's right there, right in front of you. You're becoming aware of it and you can redesign it.
Thank you so much, because that was very beautiful. It is really beautiful how you really phrase that, and you brought that up, and also just acknowledge that those children, those babies are gifts. So many times we label them with different labels that may not be so wonderful. And I think we have to look at the difference of children and how really they can be those gifts, the ability to feel that and to stop that trauma that again is generational. So
That's right.
I love how you phrase that.
Yeah.
What would you say for people that are, at this time dealing with, depression and are feeling all these symptoms? What would be the first step that they can take to really kind of get out of that, apart
That's
from
right.
going through that? What is the first step when you're feeling that, you're feeling these symptoms, you are also maybe with conjunction of anxiety as well, or just plain depression? But what would you say to people that are experiencing that?
Thank
What's
you.
the next step?
The journey of healing, the journey of contact sport. Nobody heals by themselves.
Mm.
You can read all the self-help book. You can listen to Ardeshir's podcast forever. It's not going to help you. We heal when we connect. We heal in packs. And the very first step is nurturing, finding, restoring relationships that heal you and they're good for you. It may not be one relationships. And what is that relationship? A place you go and you feel you can be you. What does it mean to be you? That you can talk about you, your stuff, whatever it is. And your stuff, you don't need explanation to nobody. It's good. If it's a word in this world, it's good. But you want a colleague that honors you, and is the quality of that colleague is called attuned witness. Avoid going to somebody who's quick with giving you advice. And there's coaches, they love to give powerful questions. No, this is about powerful connections. A tone witness is that person sees you, sees your energy, sees you're happy, you're anxious, create a space and says, tell me more. What would be helpful? So you feel you are not rushed. You can be you with all your mess and glory, because once that happens, the following happens. Your gut calms down. You feel connected. When we connect, our gut calms down. That's where anxiety is. Our heart and lungs calm down too. This is the fight or flight. You feel, I don't have to do anything. This feels good. Start with connection. The next one is in that connection. I'm going to, so this was I belong to the I am. What does he want to say? What are the words, ideas, expressions you want to say? You need to be heard. For us to be heard, for us to heal, we need to be heard. Say what's on your mind. Any way you want to say it, as long as you want to say it with any language, profanity, anything that is your way to be heard. So connect, tell your story, and ideally is heard by an atoned witness. That will be the beginning of you finding your base, and you will see your gut calming down, your brain calming down, and you come out of isolation. That's the most fundamental. And many physicians, high achievers in corner offices, they don't have that. They're in the pedestal and they are lonely.
I think loneliness is, I mean, it's a pandemic, as we all know,
Yeah.
Dr. Murty's book, loneliness is a pandemic. But I
Yeah.
do love, that connection. And it doesn't mean connecting to 1,000 people, but maybe that one person, two people that really, like I said, make you feel seen, heard, and not judged is so important. And then the telling your story too. I mean, I think writing can be a great way, and you don't ever have to publish anything, but just writing and burning that paper or deleting the writing you do on the computer, but just getting those emotions out
That's right.
to share with just the computer or with a greater audience. I think it's a great way to heal, to process those emotions that otherwise sort of weigh us down. So I do think that that is a great way. And I think personally for me, writing has been a huge part of my healing by just sharing with others, because then you don't feel alone. You can connect with other people that resonate with something you write, and they can feel that connection, that pain, that sensation that you describe, and that connection just brings everybody together. And again goes back to point number one, is that reaching out, be seen, feel like you're heard. So important for healing.
Exactly, exactly. And we don't have to have the answers. Humans are messy. We always be messy. Just hear the other person. Ask, tell me about you. Avoid giving advice. People don't need advice. People want a space to figure things out. People just want a space. I'm thinking about this. I don't know. Is it okay if I feel like this? Is it okay if I'm just not going to the gym for weeks and weeks? Yeah, it's okay. Fine. So am I. Just people want to acknowledge that you're a messy human being, because I'm a messy human being. Allowing that, and in that space, everybody will figure out what needs to happen. Wait for somebody to ask if they need advice, but just creating a space for us to be.
And what would you say, like, what are three things, since we're wrapping up, what are three things people can take away from today? Just leaving today, what are three things we can all do moving forward? Like a action that we can take, again, to get to that better place.
Wonderful. The first thing is that if by any things you have emotional, physical ailments, for lack of a better word, welcome them. They are impetus for waking up. They are not meant to hurt you. They are literally your own SOS signals to you. Get curious. Why isn't my head hurt every time I go see this patient? Why is my gut tightened every time I see the chief of medicine coming to my office? There are signals. Your body, your entire being sends you a signal. Get curious. You don't have to judge it. There's a pattern trying to see that. Number one, pay attention to also where in your body you feel things. If in gut, if it got, it means anxiety. If the anxiety lingers, that probably means early childhood trauma over this. So knowing that, why even body respond. If it's fight or flight, your gut, chest tight and so on, it means you're waiting to do something. You're craving action, but you're sitting there smiling. Says, I don't know what to do. So reading your body has a wisdom to it. The body speaks to you in a very subtle but very persistent way. Then, in terms of the next steps, start with I belong connections. Take a look at your relationships. We all need them. Are you being fulfilled with your relationships? Are you being seen? Are you being held? Are you being loved? If not, see that not as a way that, okay, I've been married for this many years, deal with it, every marriage, this and that. We all deserve to be loved, to be seen. Just see what can be done. Tolerating leads to depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that. Then is, are there things you need to say? You're all high achievers. I don't know you by just seeing your manners on this call. You have voices, you have convictions. What are things you want to, your voice belongs to the world, doesn't belong to the cavity in your brain. What are things you want to tell to the world? And finally, going to I matter. Do you feel honored? Do you feel respected? Do you feel valued? Are you in the in crowd wherever you are? Those things create a stability. You will become a queen or king on your throne. I belong, I am, and I matter. Getting those things, those stabilizes your backbone. Start with those three. Feel them and just take a look to see, do I like where I am right now? And just let the question guide you.
Yeah, definitely sitting, which, again, is a challenge for a lot of people in medicine. They're always running, but just taking the pause to take like an inventory of where you are and feeling in your body where these signals, where our soul is communicating with us through our body, through these pains, these sensations, and getting curious to asking, like, what is it trying to tell me that I haven't paid attention to because I'm just running, and listening to that, so that then you can, again, like you said, without that judgment, decide where you want to go or be. And again, let go of what's holding you, depressing you down because you're not fulfilling or paying attention to it,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah.
make that path to get to the other place.
Exactly. Pain is data. Follow the data. Data will lead you home. Pain, suffering, they are data. When we numb them, when we ignore them, when we suppress them, that's when we pay the price. Use your data. There are the folks on this call. You guys are gifted professionals that you analyze everybody else's. Use your own data. What am I picking up? What do they mean? Get curious about whatever comes up. That will lead you home to yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Ardeshir, for sharing. We just barely touched the surface of all what goes into these rights, but definitely these 3 points are helpful to take a action step of where we can start. And again, just slowing down, listening, feeling our body. And again, from the beginning of the call to now, just getting curious with that compassion, with that empathy for the self,
Yeah.
so important. And, for those that want to know more about, your work, your book, where can people find you best? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, a couple of things. Just go um, online, do ardeshirmehran.com. You will come across my website, has information about me, about my depression manifesto, which basically the title is that we've been living a lie that depression is the source of our ailments. No, it's not. So I talk about a different way of thinking about health. My podcasts, a number of them are there, my blogs, and I am an open source. As I mentioned, I'm a skeptical scientist. I take you seriously, but I don't take my science seriously. These are all meant to help. And I'm experimenting, testing. The best thing I get is feedback from my clients, from you. But the goal is that we are designed for healing. Suffering is man made, absolutely man made. Illness, loneliness are man-made. We can find a way out of it. So when we start to see generations tolerating illness, it's not illness, it's the way we think about illness. Let's change that equation.
I love it. Yeah, stopping that generational trauma at its tracks once and for all.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Ardeshir. I know you also live in LinkedIn a lot. So if you're on LinkedIn, just look him up. He's always there posting great content and just really going about, the importance of connection and being curious. And so again, thank you so much for everybody here in this call. And the replay will be on in a couple of days. You can also go to YouTube, Diana Londoño MD. You'll find the replay of this one or prior ones that we've had. And every month we'll have a physician coming to speak or an expert to again give us different tools with different ideas, different ways we can really get back to wellness and wholeness. And again, any physician that may want confidential peer-led support at physiciancoachsupport.com, just let them know and share this with them. So thank you again for everybody.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, all the guests. Thank you. Be well.